Hey, welcome everybody to the NFL or to the Grueling Truths NFL Legends Show, brought to you by Gridiron Mo. Gridiron Mo is a new interactive football app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all other fans have called also. Check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. As always, I'm your host for the Legends Show, Mike Goodpaster, and I want to welcome in my co-host, Matt Andruscavage.
Thanks very much, Mike. Very excited to be here tonight.
I figured you would be because Christian, he always plays those Super Tecmo Bowl tournaments, so I know he's going to bring that up tonight. But
well, it's not just that. Christian Okoye was by far one of my all-time favorite running backs to watch.
Oh, me too. As you talked, our guest tonight took the NFL by storm in 1987 as a second-round pick, the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the most physically punishing running backs in NFL history. Help me welcome to the Grueling Truth, Christian Okoye.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, guys.
Oh,
well, we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So tell us what it was like growing up in Nigeria.
Well, growing up in Nigeria is it's totally different. Like I always say to kids when I speak to them, it's totally different than growing up here in America, because America is a country where everything is provided for the kids. All you have to do is just go to school and focus on your education and your goals. But in Nigeria, it's totally different, in such a way that, Nigeria is a third world country. You have to go through the school fees and parents that are very poor. So there's a lot of things that you have to navigate through before you get to where you want to get to.
Well, tell us a little bit about your journey to the United States and how you ended up at Azusa Pacific.
Well, as you know, I grew up in Nigeria and went through high school in Nigeria. I was a soccer player when I was growing up. I loved soccer a lot. I still do. But when I was junior year in college, in high school, my size I was getting bigger and bigger, so I wasn't able to play around with the little guys. So I switched to track and field. I started doing the hurdling, but I was also big in hurdles, so I switched to track and field events, which is shot put and discus. It was in those events that I excelled, representing Nigeria in several competitions. From there, a friend of mine that went to the Olympics in 1980 came to Azusa Pacific in California. So I told him that I would love to come out here since the Olympics is in 1984, so I can train for the Olympics and go to school. That's how all that is worked out. He spoke to Terry Franson at Azusa Pacific, the head track coach, and they worked it out for me to come out. So I trained for the Olympics while at Azusa Pacific, made every standard that I was supposed to make, but Nigeria didn't take me. In 84, after the Olympics, I switched to football.
All right. So, how did you feel? You trained all that time for that one goal and have it unjustly taken away from you?
Well, it was heavily disappointing. It was very, very disappointing because, of course, when you train for the Olympics, you train for years. And that little moment right there, if your training for years didn't work out, it's a big disappointment. If you ever watch Olympics and see so many people fail, it's disappointing. But in my own case, it wasn't that I failed. It was that Nigeria didn't take me to the Olympics. I wasn't even there. So I was heavily disappointed. And in the meantime, friends and other people have been telling me, hey, you can be good in football. Why don't you play football? But I hated the game. We didn't have football in Nigeria, so I didn't know anything about it. So I didn't want to play football. But in 84, when I couldn't go to the Olympics, Nigeria didn't take me, I decided I'm going to give it a try. So I switched to football.
Do you remember the first football game that you saw, and what were your thoughts on it?
Yes. The first year I got to Azusa, my best friend at the time, Innocent Ignique, a track and field guy, went to 4 Olympics. He told me, he says, Christian, let's go and see a football game. I said, okay. So we got to the field. We sat down in the bleachers, and these guys came out to warm up. And I told them, I said, these guys are huge. What's going on here? Because when he said, let's go watch football, I thought he was talking about football, soccer. That's how we know football. Football, not soccer. But anyway, these guys came out to warm up, and I said, these guys are huge. What is going on here? What are they doing? He says, just watch. Okay, they warmed up, and I was watching them. The game started, and there was two sides, and, they always get together in circles and talk about something, and then they line up and, hit each other, and the whistle blows, and it stops. I said, man, this is boring. Let's get out of here. So we left, and I had never watched a football game until 1984 when the Olympic ended. And then I walked into my football coach's office, and I told him, I said, I want to play football. He said, you know anything about football? I said, no. He said, well, do you know any positions? What position would you like to play? I said, I don't know. He looked at me. He says, well, I said, well, I remember watching the news after the Super Bowl, and I saw Marcus Allen. No, I didn't mention Marcus Allen. I said I saw a guy who ran the ball and scored. I said, what was that position? He said running back. I said, okay, that's what I want to play. And that's how I came to play running back position, and it was my junior year in college that I started playing.
All right, now how easy was the transformation for you to an American football from a soccer player?
It wasn't easy at all. It wasn't easy because soccer is, as you know, is totally different from football. Soccer is not as violent as football. And so I knew soccer. I can play soccer. But football, geez, when I started playing, I think after 2 days I told him, I said, I don't want to play anymore. And the coaches are saying, since you started, you have to give you a few more days, just try, just stick with it. I couldn't sleep because my body was so sore and I had headaches, and obviously I picked the most difficult position in football, running back position. So I was getting hit all the time, and hitting people, even though I didn't know how to hit people, but I was. So it was a very difficult moment for me with the soreness all the time, and I hated the game. But my friends made me stay on. They said, you can't just quit. You can't leave something like that. Just stay on. Give it a trial. Give it a few weeks, And then a few weeks came. They said, give it another week. I gave it another week. And then they said, till the end of the season. Why don't you just finish the season and then decide? So as the season went on, I was getting better and better, So he gave them the reason to keep encouraging me to stay on because I was getting better. And after the season, of course, I had to play another season, and even my second season got better, and my third season, so on and so forth.
At what point did you say to yourself, I'm really serious about this, and I want to go to the NFL?
Well, it was after my second year playing at Azusa, many people came and saw me play. Even newspapers were writing about me because from my track and field, my speed is good, my endurance was good. So people were coming and watching me play. So after my second year, the scouts that came out, they told me, they said, Christian, you might want to give this a trial. You might want to go back and clear another eligibility. If you're eligible for 2 more years or whatever, go and use it up so you can gain experience. You might make it into the NFL. You never know. So I went back for my third year and played. That's when everything changed. After my third year, I was invited to the Senior Bowl. I went to the Senior Bowl and played. I scored 4 touchdowns. That record still stands, by the way, till today. So after that, every team just came out to check me out, including the Chiefs.
All right, so what was your draft day experience, 1987? You got drafted in the second round. Were you excited to be going to Kansas City? Did you even know where Kansas City was?
Yeah, I knew where Kansas City was because in my track and field days, we will go to Kansas City for indoor championships for NAIA. So we went over there. I knew how cold it was, so the only thing in my mind at the time after I was drafted was that it's going to be cold out there. So I need to be prepared, So, but, Kansas City is an extremely lovable town. The people there are so great. They have the best fans in the world, of course, and, I loved it out there.
So what was, like, your first training camp like? And then did anybody kind of take you under their wing to help you out?
Throughout my playing career, even in college, I was so lucky that my teammates helped me out a great deal. It's not only the coaches who were telling me the things to do and how to do them. It's mainly players. So in Kansas City, all the players, even the defensive players, they were teaching me. They were showing me some things. You need to run lower. You need to do this. You need to use your pads when you block and so on and so forth. And so they were there for me. They taught me football, and I was still learning football until I retired.
All right. Now, when you got to Kansas City, one of your coaches, Marty Schottenheimer, you want to talk a little bit about what it was like playing for Marty?
Well, yeah. I played 2 years under Frank Gans. Frank Gans was the one that drafted me, head coach at the time. He was the head coach for 2 years. And so after 2 years, he got fired, and Marty was hired. Carl Peterson came in town and hired Marty Schottenheimer. And when he came in town, I was in California at the time, he called me. He says, "Christian, I need to talk to you." And I flew back to Kansas City, and the only thing he told me, he said, I needed to get ready because we're going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball a lot. I said, okay. I got excited because I was a kid in football. I was still learning the games, the rules, and how to play the game. And running the ball is the only thing I was excited about because you don't really have to teach that. If you're an athlete, you can move around. You can get the ball from the quarterback, and you can do the things that you're supposed to do. And that's what I thought. So when he told me that, I was very excited. And, of course, that 89 was a different year for me. I led the league in rushing.
You mentioned 1989. You led the league in rushing. Your first few years were very successful. And then obviously even 1991 was a big year for you. But what were the games that, one or two games that stand out the most for you, most memorable for you?
Well, I remember my very first game in Kansas City was against San Diego Chargers. I scored and I rushed over 100 yards. So that was big for a rookie that didn't know anything about the game 3 years before, So that was the start of everything. That gave me the confidence and the belief that I can do something, in this game. So from then on, I just had the confidence to go out there and play the game.
All right. You had 2 or 3 really spectacular years. Then you had an injury. You want to talk a little bit about the injury and what it was like for you to be so successful so quick and then not really be able to be the player that you were those last couple of years?
Well, injuries as a running back, you get smacked around pretty good. The injuries came. And by the way, for the 6 years I played in the NFL, I played with injuries all the time. I remember one time in college, there was a guy who was the running back before I got to Azusa by the name of Joe Schulter. And he told me, he says, "Christian, I believe one time I sprained my shoulder a little bit, and I was complaining that it was really, really sore. I couldn't put on my pads." He told me, "Christian, football, man, you play with injuries." And that kind of stuck with me. So when I was at the Chiefs, sometimes when I get injured, I never reported the injuries unless it was a bad injury. They can see, and then it gets treated. So I play with injuries all the time when I was playing, and which was kind of stupid, and I don't advise that on anybody today.
Well, how would you like people to remember you as a football player? and as a person, really, while you were in Kansas City?
Well, I think, Kansas City, the Chiefs fans right now, I mean, they love me. I love them back because, they treat me well and I treat them good. And when I was playing, I was good to the fan and the team, of course. I want them to remember me as somebody who has a good determination of what he wants to get done. And that's exactly who I was when I played because, nobody's going to give you anything. When you're on the football field, you're not a nice guy. You shouldn't be a nice guy. Off the field, you can be as nice as you can. And I learned that pretty quick, Of course, as a running back, nobody's going to give you anything. You're a marked man. They're coming after you from all angles, and they came after me from all angles.
So I wanted to ask you about one of your teammates, one of the greatest players in NFL history, the late Derek Thomas. What was it like what was he like as a teammate, and what was it like to work against him in practice?
Practice. Derek didn't like practice. He was a terrible practice guy. He didn't practice, But when the game came on, man, it's like a switch. It comes on. And so a lot of great players are like that too. But he's such a nice guy, and I believe his rookie year they paired us together to a room on the road. So he was my roommate on the road. And so I got to know him pretty good, and he was a great guy, and we miss him.
Well, there's another thing I wanted to ask you. Mike alluded it before. There was a video, I'm sure you remember it very well, ESPN or NFL Films put out, and you were playing. There's players remembering the old Tecmo Super Bowl game from 1991, and there's footage of you. Wondering, a little curious about this game. A lot of people have talked about it, and you got to learn about it a little bit. I myself, having seen that video, a friend of mine and I decided, that tournament is in our home state, and we had never heard of that before, and it actually inspired us to go play in the tournament. This is one of our favorite games of all time, reminds us of our childhood. How often do people reminisce about that game? As you know, you're one of the best players in the game.
Well, I hear about the game a lot, and, believe it or not, I never played Tecmo Bowl. I never played it. I didn't own the game until 2 years ago when NFL Films came and did a story on that, and they brought the game with them, and I played it for the first time. Even though the game has been in existence for over 20 years, you see. But I hear about it all the time. Every time I go on events, people will bring the actual game for me to sign, and I signed thousands of it. And 2 years ago was the first time that I actually played it, and that was when I understood the reason why people were so geeked about it.
Yeah, it was like real life. Nobody could tackle you.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
So you talked about the injuries you had all through your career. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on today with the concussions and stuff. What was it like back then going through because I know I've talked to some players from the 80s that said teams wouldn't report injuries. They kind of forced guys to play. Did you ever run into anything like that?
Well, yeah, it's NFL is a fraternity, when you play against somebody and something happens, you knock them over, they knock you over, get a good tackle, whatever, you guys tend to remember that, and we get together in different golf tournaments and you see each other and you talk about it. So, it's one of those things. I just came back from Chicago, and we were roasting Richard Dent in a charity event, Better Boys Foundation, to benefit the Better Boys Foundation. And I told the story of Richard Dent and I. I believe it was in 1989 or 1990. We played against the Bears in Chicago, and he and I knocked each other out, and we never spoke of it for over 20 years because I was thinking I got the worst of it, and he was thinking that he got the worst of it. So when we get together, play golf or whatever, we never talked about it until last year we were in Vegas. And somebody was asking Richard Dent, hey, Richard, what was the worst concussion you ever get in football in your career? He pointed at me. And immediately he pointed at me, he came back. That play came back. I said, oh, my gosh. I was woozy myself, too. And I told him the whole story. And he said, Christian, I was so glad you guys didn't run the ball the next play. So I told him, I said, Richard, listen. When I got back to the huddle, Steve DeBerg was calling a running play again. And I told him, Steve, no, I can't do it. You got to change the play. And he had to change it to a pass play. So I told him I was the one that changed the play because I wasn't feeling good myself. So it's one of those things.
Well, I was wondering what, now that you're retired and what are the kind of things that you're up to today? What keeps you busy today?
I have two things that is keeping me busy. Since 1990, I've been running my foundation for children, the Christian Okoye Foundation. So 10 years ago, what we do with that foundation is we do sports clinics in the summertime for the underprivileged kids. It's free to the kids. They can come. It's open to anyone who wants to come. But we focus on the privileged kids. 10 years ago, in 2006, I started the California Sports Hall of Fame. It was after I was inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. I came back to California and started doing my research to see if California had one. And California didn't have any. So I got together all the big names in sports in California and asked them if they can support if I started one. And they all said yes. So I started the California Sports Hall of Fame. So every year we induct individuals. And this year we have 7 inductees. This year is going to be our 10th year of induction. So it's exciting.
All right. Is there a website where people can find out about the Christian Okoye Foundation in case they know somebody wants to go to it? Or
yeah, if anybody wants to know about the Okoye Foundation, just go to okoyefoundation.org.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
And for the California Sports Hall of Fame is californiasportshalloffame.org.
All right. Now, you came from Nigeria. I know they hadn't had a lot of NFL football players. Has there been any kind of increase in the interest in American football in Nigeria since you were such a star in the NFL?
Oh, of course. I mean, I don't know if you watched Football Life that NFL films put out on me a couple of months ago.
But, one of my favorites, too.
Yeah, so if you remember on the film, you see a bunch of Nigerians who are playing the NFL today, and they're all playing the NFL because of me. Because before that, as I said earlier, football wasn't a thing that Nigerian parents encouraged their kids to play because of the violence. But after they saw me play, a lot of Nigerians started putting their kids in Pop Warner. And now those Pop Warner kids are, retiring from NFL and still playing or entering NFL. I mean, it's one of those things that I am very proud of.
Okay. Now, let's see, how do I want to phrase this? I mean, so do high schools have teams also in Nigeria, or is it more like club football, things like that?
No, we don't have football in Nigeria. It's mainly Nigerian parents that moved to America are putting their kids in football in America. In Nigeria, we don't have the resources, the medical or the football is not a cheap sport, as you know.
Yeah. So
buying helmets and maintaining the helmets and shoulder pads and injuries and so on and so forth. We don't have that. So we don't have football in Nigeria. I mean, some people try to play it, as a recreation, but it's not working. So I'm hoping that NFL will see the interest that a lot of Nigerians have in Nigeria and maybe try to do something over there, because I don't think one man can do it alone. I've been thinking about doing something over there, but it's just too big of a deal for me to do. I mean, you can go over there and do a clinic without pads and stuff, like flag football, but it's not enough. You see, because these people in Nigeria, they see a lot of Nigerians that play in college and in the NFL all the time on TV. But, nothing is going on in Nigeria. Soccer is huge.
Do you watch the NFL today, and is there anybody in particular that you enjoy watching?
Oh, yeah, I love watching Adrian Peterson. He's a violent runner. I mean, I love watching him play, so it's great athlete.
All right, we're about out of time. Christian, it was an honor for both of us to have you on the show tonight.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And, of course, if anybody's listening, I mean, I'm sure people are listening. You guys got fans. You can go and check us out at OkoyeFoundation.org, CaliforniaSportsHallOfFame.org, and you can follow me on Twitter at Christian Okoye. All that stuff.
All right.
Thank you.
Matt, any final words for Christian?
Oh, absolutely. Christian, like Mike said, it was an absolute honor to speak with you tonight. Some of my fondest memories as an NFL fan are watching you as a running back playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. I watched you growing up, and it was an absolute honor to talk to you tonight.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you so much.
All right, so guys, make sure you go check out the Grueling Truth Facebook page. Check us out at Twitter, at Grueling Truth, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher. Remember, you can catch our show from last night with former five-time world boxing champion Vinny Pazienza. We've got former defensive lineman from the Cincinnati Bengals, Gary Burley, tomorrow night. Brian Blados, offensive lineman from the Bengals, on Thursday night. So make sure you check out all our shows. Go check out our sponsors, Gridiron Mo, SteelbergBox.com, and Real Bengal Fans. So once again, I want to thank Christian Okoye. I mean, anytime you want to come on this show, I guarantee you me and Matt will have you, because you were one of our favorite players, and it was a big deal to us to get to talk to you for this half hour. It means a lot to both of us.
Well, thanks, guys, for having me on. Thank you.
So, for Christian Okoye, Matt Andruscavage, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.